first episode of Bulldog Blitz, the only place where you'll find a sports talk show that puts an emphasis on high school sports. But we'll also cover professional sports and college and stuff like that as well. Me and Liam Cohen will talk about RB basketball. We'll interview Danny Loftus, and then we'll transition to NFL. We'll recap what's going on there, as well as give our picks for Super Bowl and the MVP. Then we'll transition to college football, where we'll cover all the controversies surrounding the college football playoff, as well as the Heisman race. Finally, we'll end it off on a really good segment called Dialed In, where callers will dial in and give their own hot takes. So Liam, let's go to you. What's been going on with RB basketball lately?
I mean, RB basketball has just been on fire recently. They've had a great start. They're 5-1 right now. And, I mean, talk about a game over last weekend at the Chicago Elite Classic. Massive win over Ignatius. And that's featuring Danny Loftus. He had a big shot at the end.
Of course, we'll talk more about that.
I mean, everyone's calling it an upset, but, I mean, I have my money on RB the whole way.
I mean, it was a very educating loss they had to Brother Rice earlier, losing 62-71, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was their only loss of the season, and it seems like the team has learned a lot since then, beating Latin by 34, St. Ignatius, as you mentioned, and then they started off the season 3-0, actually, beating Thornwood, Hancock, which was just a slaughtering, and then Hinsdale South as well. So very successful in the Vandenberg tournament to open it up. Unfortunately, they did not win, but they went very far. And right now, I'd say their name is on the map in terms of IHSA.
Oh, 100%. I mean, no one really expected the Dogs to come out with that victory, but I mean, a tight game is just the best game for the Bulldogs. I mean, they excel in those kind of games.
Especially, and St. Ignatius also had Derek Scott, I believe, or Justin Scott.
Justin Scott, yeah.
Who is the 5-star D lineman commit for Ohio State. And the fact that he's also playing basketball, he's a huge body that they had to overcome there, and they did the job.
Yeah, actually, news on him is he actually decommitted, and he's committed to Miami now.
Really?
Yeah, that's big for football. He's a massive part of both their basketball team and their football team.
Of course, yeah. And so looking ahead, RB, they play Hillcrest coming up.
Yeah.
As well, more recently, they play Elmwood coming up Friday. And so a lot of interesting games on the schedule. A lot of crosstown rivalries between Fenwick and LT coming up as well towards the latter end of the season. And that'll be important to see because those will probably be some of their bigger games, I believe.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, let's talk about some big games here throughout the Chicago Elite Classic. Thornton, a massive shocker over Kenwood. I mean, Kenwood is top 5 in the state, everyone's believing. But then Thornton comes out, statement win, 52-45.
I would even argue that Kenwood was number 1 in the preseason.
100%.
But now they have a player that is committed or guys offers from every single Ivy League school. I think it's Morez Johnson Jr.
Yeah.
And so he's a special player. And the fact that Thornton could overcome that, I think they're clearly the number 1 right now in the state.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and Thornton to be able to come out and just get a huge win like that in a big stadium, I mean, it's a new setting for them, and they took it all in.
That is another factor that people need to consider. That whole thing was at UIC, and that's a big climate, and this is the beginning of the season, and teams are getting used to playing under the lights, under a huge array of fans, and so this is a telling moment for them to win that.
I mean, there's no home court advantage. I mean, no one really has the upper hand. It's just really who wants it more. And
couldn't agree more, and I think their only loss was to a team out of state, correct?
Yeah. I think that actually just happened more recently. We'll talk about some out-of-state games. Curie loses to the DC Sidwell Friends, only by 2, 56-54. That was a really good game. Sidwell was just able to come out with the victory.
Close one there, and we know a lot about Curie, don't we?
Yeah, Will Gonzalez.
Will Gonzalez, known as Lil Baby on the team. D1 commit, I believe. Definitely will have D1 offers by the end of the season, but he's a special player to look out for. Transfer from RB, transfer last season. Big player. Although RB lost in that final game against Hinsdale Central last year, he scored the most amount of points in that game. I believe it was 16.
Yeah, he was a star for our team last year, and I mean, everyone kind of knew last year was going to be his last year at RB, and he made a statement with it. He went out, did all he could for the community, did all he could for his boys next to him.
Yeah, and then RB plays Curie quite a lot, and so I would imagine that would just kind of fuel the fire, fuel the hatred between those two teams when they play each other.
Yeah, that should be an amazing game to watch, and I think RB will host one of those games.
That'll be cinema, yeah. So with that being said, we'll transition here to our interview with Danny Loftus coming up after the break. Thank you so much. All right, so Danny, thank you for joining us in the studio today. A lot of great things going on with the basketball program right now. Could you take us through the starting 5? Who's been critical for the team so far?
Recently, it has changed, but the starting 5 for the past couple games has been me, Makai Austin, Stefan Sisic, Stephen Brown, and Cameron Mercer.
It sounds like a very strong five. With that five, what kind of goals do you guys have set for the season?
I'd say the biggest thing for us is like constant improvement on defense. Since we got the 7-footer, our offense is kind of set already. We already know how it's going to work, but as a five, we have to collectively keep improving on defense. That's kind of our goal throughout the whole season.
Would you call Steven the facilitator as the point guard right now?
Yeah, Steven's a great facilitator. He's also a great scorer too. I mean, he does it all. I love playing with Steven.
I see the connection between you and Cam seems to be evident right now. There's one shot of Cam going up for an and one, and then you guys high-fiving afterwards. What's that connection been like?
Well, I've known Cam for so long. I mean, I've been playing basketball with him since middle school, like 6th or 7th grade. And, last year we were teammates as well, and we both played substantial minutes together last year too. So I feel like our connection has just grown over time. We've known each other for such a long time. And
yeah, that plays like a big role in basketball. What's it been like changing from the JV stage to the varsity stage?
It's honestly crazy. The 6-man just completely changes the atmosphere, and it makes you nervous before games because there's like about quadruple the amount of people that there usually are for JV, and the game is just so much faster, and everybody's so much better, so much stronger. It definitely took some adjusting too.
The hype is definitely building around the fans, around the players. What are some goals? You mentioned it before, but you got a lot of tournaments this year, and then you win conference almost every year for basketball. So what do you hope to accomplish this season in terms of that?
Like you said, we play in a couple tournaments. So like the Jack Tosh tournament, which is going to be coming up pretty soon for Christmas. We hope to win that. There's always very, very good teams in there. If we win that, we could definitely see a rise in our rankings as well. I mean, obviously we would love to go down to state too, win a sectional, win a super sectional and everything like that.
Obviously, there's critical tournaments like regionals conference and like Jack Tosh tournament. What certain teams do you guys have circled on the calendar?
That's real good. LT for sure. I always love playing LT. I always love beating LT. I'm 2-0. So LT, Fenwick's a big one as well. And what else? Morton too. Kind of our rivals.
I see y'all are ranked 19 in the state currently. I also see Hillcrest, a big game coming up on the schedule there. How are y'all preparing for that?
We played Hillcrest 2 times in the summer, so we know their personnel, we know how they play. We're preparing every single day for them. I mean, just like you said, they're a big name as well, and they're definitely people that we're thinking about every practice because they're going to be practicing just like we are too.
And yeah, just kind of touch up on what he said. You guys are ranked 19th in the state. And obviously that comes to help with that big shot you hit. What was the moment like after you hit that 3-pointer against Ignatius?
The moment after was just, it was crazy. I was so hyped. It kind of feels like a blur, but I just remember, hearing a lot of cheers, and then they called a timeout, and I went to the bench, and everybody's cheering me on because, I got such great teammates, and it was awesome. The energy just shot up after that.
And then I could see one of the first players coming to you was Vince Stockendorf right afterwards. He's also a new member on this varsity team, as well as Montas Slanis, and Nova Zorak and Rylan Bruno. Those are some new names, juniors that are now on the varsity team. What is it like now? How are these group of players different from last season?
Particularly Vince and Montas, because I played with them a lot more last season than Rylan and Noah. But they're all my good friends. But outside of that, we've all put in so much work. Rylan and Noah have got so much stronger. Montas has got much stronger, and Vince is, probably the hardest working guy I've met, and his shot making has gone up way much too. So seeing them progress up to varsity level basketball is awesome too.
And just like Liam said, with a bunch of new guys on this varsity team, how is everyone kind of like connected?
We play so much together in the summer and the fall that we are kind of forced to connect. You know what I mean? But it's still awesome because the connections and the friendships grow just because, we practice every day together. In the summer, we're together every single day, and I feel like everybody's meshing pretty well, blending together.
Who would you say you're closest to on the team?
There's so many names. Junior is probably Vince. Vince has been my best friend since I was probably like 3 years old in pre-K. And seniors, Sam and Steven I've known for such a long time. And Sam is like a cousin, so obviously I'm pretty close with him.
And there are, those are some new players, but Stefan Stesic, he's definitely not a new player. This is his second year on the team. He's clearly made a huge impact. Everyone knows who he is in the whole school. What's it been like having him, and then how's it been dealing with the loss of Arias Alajosis? I know he's been a big player last season.
I mean, obviously Steph is just a gamer. Him being in the game changes the season for us. Obviously, a game without Steph is a much harder game. He makes it a lot easier for a guy like me and then the other players on our team. And, you know, having Steph he's the most important player to our team through and through, like you said. You know, he's kind of a celebrity here, I guess. But touching on Arias, I mean, he was such a skilled shot maker, Division II basketball player. I got to practice against him, and, you know, he's a dog. He did great things for us. So it's definitely, you know, we wish we had a player his caliber or him returning, just like Steph. But, you know, we make do, and I feel like we're good without him as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not see him in the hallways in the school.
Yeah.
But like you said, you've known some of these kids like your whole life. What's it like being able to play varsity basketball with these guys?
That's great. I mean, I've been in the Junior Bulldogs program for so long. You know, I used to come to games with those guys, and we used to be watching the varsity team, and they were like our idols. You know, like they were celebrities. I have an autograph from some of them, and it's so nice to be able to play with them and just see them succeed as well.
Well, thank you. And then last thing, Elmwood Park coming up on Friday. Could you give us a little bit of a score prediction? How do you think that'll go for you guys?
30-point Bulldog W.
Similar to how it was on Tuesday, winning by 34 against Latin, 79-45. We hope to see Bulldogs get another dominant victory again on Friday. Danny, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
After that insightful interview from Danny Loftus, we'll now move to the NFL, where there's a lot of good stuff going on right now. Liam, what's going on with the NFC?
NFC is kind of all over the place, in my opinion. We'll start off with the NFC East, or NFC Beast. The top two teams, the Cowboys and the Eagles. Cowboys are 9-3, sitting second, and the Eagles are 10-2. But I mean, in my opinion, I don't know if the Cowboys have it in them to make any playoff push.
I mean, they play the Eagles next week, and that'll be a blockbuster game.
Yeah. There's also, I mean, Giants and Commanders in that division, but they don't really play their part. They're both sitting at 4-9 and 4-8. But I mean, Cowboys just got their first win over a team above 500.
Yeah, they'll play the Eagles, then they play the Dolphins, and then they got some tough games coming up. It's basically like a mini playoff run they go into right here.
Yeah.
That'll really kind of that'll really tell what's going on with them. December's always a big month for them.
Oh,
they
100%,
usually
100%.
underperform. So we'll see. But what's shocking to me is that only a couple of years ago, it used to be called the NFC Least, and you just referred to it as the NFC Beast, and that just shows how much the division has changed.
I mean, NFC Least was the Commanders, that awful year that they had, and then had that big upset against the Pittsburgh Steelers to end their, I think, 11-0 streak. But now it's kind of flip-flop. That division is one of the strongest in football.
Definitely, yeah.
And now we'll transition into the NFC West. We got the 49ers. I mean, in my opinion, best team in the NFL right now.
Super Bowl favorite, definitely.
I mean, big win over the Eagles. A big win.
That also put Brock Purdy's MVP odds into first right now.
I know. He's been nothing but great. I mean, coming out of the last pick in the draft, I mean, you can't really ask for any more.
He's definitely overachieved, but I'd still say I would not in the slightest call him an MVP favorite at all.
He does have every kind of weapon around him.
Yeah.
Then we'll go on to the NFC North. We got the Lions, and we got our Bears sitting at last 4-8. But is it really a bad thing for us? I mean, we want the better draft pick. Let's be honest here.
We want that, yeah, and so really that's up in the hands of Carolina at the moment.
Yeah, but also the Lions. They're kind of getting inconsistent recently.
They have been, yeah. But they still sit strong at, like you said, 9 wins. So
yeah,
they're a lock for the playoffs for sure, and we'll see what they bring.
And we'll see how the Vikings and Packers will end off their season. They're both 6-6. Playoff chances are in the air. So now we'll head on to the NFC South. That's probably the worst division in football at this moment.
It's a mess.
You got the Falcons sitting at 6-6. They lead the division. And then you obviously have the Panthers, 1-11. Bryce Young. Wow.
While it is such a bad division, I would say at the same time it is definitely exciting because any team besides the Panthers can win it at the moment.
Yeah. Actually, if it weren't for their loss last week, the Panthers still had a chance to host a playoff game. They were able to win the division, depending on how everything fell together.
Yeah, I would have the Falcons going all the way at the moment to the playoffs.
100%.
I think even though their most reliable player is their kicker, which is really saying something.
Yeah.
But with that, let's go to the AFC.
Yeah.
Which is, I'd even say that's weaker than the NFC at the moment. And that's mostly due to the lack of quarterbacks right now.
Oh.
Anthony Richardson, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence all gone right now. Trevor Lawrence, however, that's more of a minor ankle sprain. He'll probably be back in a couple weeks. But moving to the AFC East, Dolphins to the top at 9-3. Not really surprising. They got a great coach, great offense going on right there with Tyreek, who probably should win MVP at the moment if he reaches that 2,000-yard landmark.
He has my vote right now.
Definitely, my vote too. But the problem concerning them, and this is the same with the Cowboys, is can they beat good teams?
Yeah, I mean, they've showed to be strong against those bad teams. I mean, 70 points in one game against the Broncos, it's not really saying much. That was when the Broncos were, 1-5?
Yeah, and they've struggled now. And all their 3 losses have come against teams over 500. And it's not going to get any easier with them because they play the 49ers and the Jaguars, I believe, coming up. So they got some crazy games ahead. Or actually, excuse me, that might be the Ravens. But they also have some crazy running games coming up.
And then speaking of the AFC East, the Bills.
Bills.
What a disappointment.
This is a really hot take, but at the moment, I'd say Josh Allen isn't even the best Josh Allen in the NFL right now. That would go to the defensive end on the Jaguars. He's top 5 in sacks right now. And Josh Allen really plays down to the level of who he's playing with. So if he's playing against Tommy DeVito, he'll play like that. If he's playing against Patrick Mahomes, he has played well. So we'll see. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, AFC West, Chiefs are 8-4. Very disappointing for them, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, I would agree.
And that would come from their wide receiver core, Justin Watson, Rashee Rice, Sky Moore. Not some big-name guys at all. Just Travis Kelce really leading the way. A lot of missed catches, a lot of drops, a lot of controversial calls, especially the last one last week.
100%.
That kind of lost them the game. So these games have really been down to the wire with them, and that's the reason why they've been losing these games. And so for the Ravens, NFC North, you talked about NFC South being the worst. AFC North is probably the best division at the moment, along with the NFC East. Ravens are 9-3 at the top. They might be my favorite to go to the Super Bowl against the 49ers. Steelers are somehow 7-5, and Browns are 6-6. So they're in the mix somehow because Jake Brown did well. And then finally with AFC South, Jags are 8-4, looking fine. So with that being said, let's move to college football now, where we'll talk about the Heisman race. Now, I have Jaden Daniels. I think he has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league since those Joe Burrow stats back in 2019. Here you go, for reference, 3,812 passing yards, 1,134 rushing yards. And this is what's crazy. His ratio of touchdowns to interceptions is 50-4. That's insane. That's unprecedented. That's unlike Bo Nix or Michael Penix, the other 2 candidates in discussion right now. Liam, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, Jaden Daniels is playing out of his mind. I mean, when you compare his stats to Joe Burrow's stats, which are like notably crazy, his are almost better.
Yeah, they're notably similar, yeah. And Jaden Daniels is a better rusher than Joe Burrow.
Oh, 100%. And he also doesn't have those receivers that Joe Burrow had, like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I mean,
yeah. Well, and he's turned Malik Neighbors into a top 10 in the mix wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, I think it's just great how he's been able to take over that LSU team. And
yeah, I mean, Malik Neighbors is vastly talented, but I don't think he would have reached nearly the heights he's reaching if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels.
Oh, 100%.
Speaking on Penix a little bit, his completion percentage is notable at 65.9%. 4,218 passing yards, so he does have more than Daniels.
Yeah.
He also does have another stud wide receiver in Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
He's been another one of those top wide receivers in the mix there as well. His touchdown-interception ratio, though, is a little bit more spotty, 36-9. So that's kind of problematic there, as you can see, compared to Daniels. And then Nix, speaking on him now, he has 4,145 passing yards, so slightly less than Penix. 77.2 completion percentage, which is insane. But in my opinion, I would rank Penix above Nix for the sole reason that Penix beat Nix head-to-head twice this season.
Yeah. You got to go to say that Bo Nix really only had 200 rushing yards this year. And when you combine that with Jaden Daniels, we both know that Jaden Daniels outplays him 100%. Yeah. And like you said, Penix kind of just has the head-to-head, which clearly means a lot in college football. And
that's not giving any disrespect to Bo Nix, because I believe he is one of the top 5 transfers of all time in college football. Joe Burrow's probably first from Ohio State to LSU, but Bo Nix transferring from Auburn to Oregon, he's done so much for that Oregon program. He's really kind of put them on the map now. They play against Liberty, and they should crush Liberty. I think the line is 16, minus 16, Oregon, and I'm completely for that. I would take Oregon in that money line. Just because Liberty, they had an amazing season, but they're no match to Oregon right now. Behind Bo Nix, you have Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving. So those are some powerful names right there as well. And so, I mean, Bo Nix still is good, but I would put Penix and Jaden Daniels over him. And then another player that I'd like to mention, Jalen Milroe. I know that he isn't even in contention anymore. The top 3 has been narrowed down to those 3.
Yeah.
But he had one great game against Auburn, but I think that's about it. I think his 35 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, so not that great. 2,718 passing yards, less than all of those. It really makes sense why he's in consideration.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about like the top 3. I think they narrowed it down to top 4. I mean, there's Marvin Harrison in it, but he's really not even in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like Tyreek Hill, where Tyreek Hill should be in consideration for MVP. I think it's
Yeah.
different with that. Marvin Harrison lost to Michigan in that big Big Ten rivalry game between Michigan, and because he lost, I feel like that kind of puts him out of contention.
Yeah.
And now, speaking of Michigan, I think we should move to our natty picks.
Oh, 100%.
And let's go to Michigan-Bama. Now, Michigan, this is a very interesting game, obviously, with the whole FSU controversy. Michigan was a 2.5 favorite, so very close. It's going to be a very close game. However, now, the public seems to be favoring Alabama. This is one of the most lopsided money lines since Deion Sanders went 3-0 with Colorado, and everyone was putting their money towards him.
Yeah.
Everyone is putting their money on Alabama, and I think this is great. I would take Alabama personally.
Really?
And I think this is very controversial. This isn't even controversy corner yet, but we're getting to there.
Yeah.
Alabama will win, Maddie.
I think Michigan has a chance. I mean, Illinois native J.J. McCarthy, he's kind of shown to not really excel in these really top 4 games. I mean, when you put up his like recent stats, he kind of gets like under like 200 passing yards. But that Michigan defense is
Chris
it's the best in college football.
Leading the defensive tackle there, he's been insane. You also got Blake Corum, so J.J. McCarthy doesn't need to be good when you got him running the ball.
Yeah.
So there are some great names behind that as well, so I do understand that take. And then let's move to Washington, Texas.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to be favoring Texas here, and I can understand why. It's mainly because of the home field advantage they have.
Yeah.
The game, the Sugar Bowl, is being played in New Orleans, so it's just going to be a stadium full of orange when you get there. And that's going to be very troubling for Washington. They're going so far from home, and that's why I got Texas.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, Texas, I feel like they're going to be the ones coming out with the win. And Washington, I think this is their first undefeated season in, I think, school history.
Yeah.
And it's a great story, but I don't think they're going to get the job done.
So some lukewarm takes we have right now, but stay in your seats because we're going to be put on the hot seat going up in the controversy corner next after this. Thank you. And now we head into Controversy Corner, where we'll give our picks for MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, and other awards for the NFL. Starting off, I think the 3 that should be in contention are Tyreek Hill, Hurts, and Lamar. Now, right now, Purdy and Prescott are number 2, which is just insane to me and not realistic at all.
Yeah. I mean, I really couldn't agree more. I mean, Dak Prescott is my fantasy quarterback. He's getting the job done, but you look at the teams he's playing, and they're all under 500.
Yeah. So I think we should brace ourselves and wait for them to play these games first.
Yeah, I think they have a big game Sunday.
Against the Eagles.
Yeah,
big
big divisional matchup. That would decide really who gets the 1 spot in the division for the time being. But, I mean, you also kind of throw in Tyreek Hill there.
You also do, and I think Tyreek Hill, I want to speak on him a little bit. He has 1,481 reception yards. He's close to breaking Calvin Johnson's record, which is a little bit over 2,000. If he beats that, I think he should be over. Call it there.
I mean, last week you could just see, like, he is that offense. Mike McDaniel just throws him in motion, and you're not really stopping him with that speed. He had 2 60-plus yard touchdowns that really kind of carried the Dolphins in their last week game.
And you spoke about fantasy a little bit. He is the number 1 fantasy option right now out of all the quarterbacks, even out of every position. He is number 1. That just speaks volumes to the player he is, I believe.
And I mean, with the 1,481 receiving yards, he's got 12 touchdowns. I mean, he's getting you in the end zone. He's setting you up, and then you just have a guy like Raheem Mostert just punch it in for you guys.
Exactly. Tua, more of a system quarterback that he's just been shown to play well because of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
They complemented each other's games perfectly. 93 receptions from Tyreek Hill, so clearly Tua's been favoring him over Waddle and all those. Then let's move to Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think this is a no-brainer.
Oh.
Let's say it at the same time. 3, 2, 1.
C.J. Stroud. And I mean, it just shows. I mean, he's in MVP talks. He's top 5 in the MVP conversation. I don't think he's obviously going to get the MVP because there's definitely better options. But wow, that touchdown ratio through his first 10 weeks. I think it was what, like 17-1. I think he got to 19-1 was the best he got.
Yeah, now he has 20 touchdowns. He is truly quite a player, and he's one of the only good Ohio State quarterbacks in recent memory, which is a little sad for us Bears fans.
Yeah.
We do have Justin Fields, who we wish he was more like C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, and you kind of got to bring up his second half, like boom. I mean, at the start of the year, you got Puka Nacua. I mean, he just was he was all Rookie of the Year. I mean, he was leading the league in receptions, receiving yards. But then C.J. Stroud kind of just burst from the scene. He used Tank Dell, used his receivers, and he's just been that all-around kind of quarterback that Texans have really needed for the past couple of years.
Yeah, and then just last week, he actually beat the Broncos' Linsanity run, where they won 5 games in a row against some crazy teams, and now they're back to earth just because of C.J. Stroud beating Mr. Unlimited.
Unlimited.
But yeah, so now they're 7-5, contending against the Jaguars, and I think, watch out, they could beat them and take the number 1 AFC South spot.
Yeah, and we'll stay on the topic of rookies. We'll go Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, Jalen Carter and Devon Witherspoon kind of just carry this whole conversation here.
Oh yeah, and I would lean definitely more towards Jalen Carter there. Devin Witherspoon, we haven't seen as much of the prowess that we've seen with Tariq Woolen last year.
Yeah.
I feel like Tariq Woolen was more of a better rookie than he is at the moment, so I would lean towards Carter.
And I mean, there's Will Anderson, who's really kind of stepping up recently.
Very like last game even, he just had a monster game.
Monster game, which is great to see. He's breaking out as well as C.J. Stroud. I mean, that's Texans team is just going to be great for years to come.
Yeah, and then an underrated pick that I would have would be Brian Branch. He had this insane SportsCenter top 10 one-handed pick 6 last week. And he has been a player that has gone under the radar, but if you do watch his games, he makes a big impact in all of them. He has racked up his share of interceptions, and I would definitely not leave him out of the conversation.
Yeah. And then lastly, we'll go to the biggest. You got a big name, you're going to be in this topic. Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, the top 3 are Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, and T.J. Watt.
I got none of those.
I know. I got DeRon Bland.
I got DeRon Bland, too.
I mean,
if you break the record for pick sixes, five pick sixes, that's the all-time season record.
Yeah.
I think that should be the end of the conversation there.
I mean, he's got the same amount of touchdowns as Travis Kelce, more touchdowns than Devontae Adams, and the same as Austin Eckler, who's been known to just get every touchdown for that offense. I mean, that's crazy to think about.
This is only his 2nd year in the league, too.
Yeah. And I mean, he was a backup off the bench.
Exactly.
And to be able to get 5 pick sixes that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Another name that I would mention would be Danielle Hunter, but besides that, I really think it should be Bland. I mean, Garrett and Parsons, those are just namesake. You know, that's why they're in the conversation always. They are very talented, but I feel like their stats compared to others like Bland, not even comparable.
I mean, people have the argument that Bland gets cooked by DK Metcalf all of last game.
He did kind of get cooked.
But I mean, he still got 5 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really go like that. That goes without being said. It's just that's a crazy stat line.
And so, I mean, that was kind of a hot take, I'd say, from us, but that's just what you're gonna get from Controversy Corner.
What's up? My name is James Long. I'm from Riverside. I believe that FSU should be in the college football playoffs because it's always been about the most deserving team, not the best team.
Well, thank you, James, for that take. I would actually agree with you here. I believe FSU should be in over Alabama. And let's analyze a couple things right here, right? The main narrative is that they would be in if it wasn't for Jordan Travis getting injured.
Yeah.
But if Jordan Travis was part of the Florida State team, the reasoning is that Alabama is a better team. That would still hold true. Even I would take Alabama over Florida State, even with healthy Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
So that just kind of disproves that narrative that FSU shouldn't be in. Because either way, I feel like they shouldn't be in if that's what you're going to say. And that just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. I do think FSU kind of deserves it. I mean, you do have an undefeated season, which is great. I mean, I guess I can understand the committee saying that Jordan Travis, they're nothing without Jordan Travis, but they still got to 13-0.
Yeah.
They're a deserving team. Like, everyone else on that team played their part, got to the 13-0. And like you just said earlier, James, that the system is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, last thing I would say about this is more of a decision made for the fans than the players.
Yeah.
I think every player would be outraged at this, that you win every game, you do all that you could, and you still don't get in.
Yeah.
I mean, when in history has there ever been a playoff that's been decided like this? Like, ever in the history, it's always been record. There's been things, objective things to decide this, and that's why I think this is kind of stupid. I think we have the same take on this, but now let's hear from someone else who thinks differently.
Hi, this is Jesus from Riverside. I believe that the College Board, College Football Playoff Committee made the right decision by putting Alabama in the playoffs because it's about the 4 best teams, especially with Jordan Travis getting hurt.
All right, well, thank you, Jesus. I know you believe that Alabama should be in, but once again, I just want to reiterate, I don't think they should be for a variety of reasons. Also, why do you even have this playoff? why is there even games to be played if
Yeah.
you just gotta elect the best team from the get-go? Because this never would have changed.
Might as well just hand the trophy over. I mean, if you want just the more name, like the bigger name school to get into the playoffs, I mean, you might as well just give them the trophy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that Michigan would have crushed Florida State if that would have been the matchup, but
Yeah.
that's just how it is. That's how it always has been. There's been lopsided playoff matches, and the lopsided team would win. And that's just how it goes. That should be part of the playoff experience. This isn't meant for the viewer. This is meant for the players playing it, participating in it. And
Yeah.
it's unfair to them.
I mean, thank God for the 12-team playoff coming next year.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to for sure. I think this will be a great move on college sports' behalf, a rare W for the committee. This is something that will change the game for the better. You'll have no more of these discussions, no more of these debates that are prevalent this year, and it'll just be a great decision moving forward.
Yeah, one last thing you got to add in. I mean, got to give him the hand. Good job to Nick Saban there, kind of using politics in his speech to get his way into these playoffs, and it worked just as he wanted it to.
Committee loves Nick Saban,
Yeah.
and then Georgia also. Last thing I'll say about this too that I just thought of, Georgia should be one of the best teams, and so if they're not in, how's Alabama in?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say on that. Thank you. Now we'll wrap up our show. We hope you enjoyed, and we look forward to shooting more Bulldog Blitzes. Thank you, and stay tuned.